Webinars are hosted by BHF and examine Bengali culture and its impact on the Indian diaspora in the context of today's world. The panelists are eminent personalities from UK, India, and across the world with deep understanding of the topics, and the format is also very interactive with audience questions at the end of each session. The first chapter of the Think Tank series was titled Coronashur Mordini and was hosted by BHF in July this year. The coronavirus pandemic is a disease, but it is more than just a disease. It is also a disruption. It has disrupted our ways of life and our livelihoods. The situation back in July was uncertain, and the question in the minds of Bengalis across the globe was, what will happen to Puja this year? What will happen to the thousands of people whose livelihoods depend on it? In our webinar, we brought together organizers from Puja committees across Europe and India, and also, idol makers, stall owners, light artists, and other artisans to understand their perspectives and exchange ideas on how to overcome the obstacles and celebrate Puja together this year.
Hello, I'm Amit. I lead the Art and Heritage wing of the Bengal Heritage Foundation. We run programs through the year in the UK to promote and preserve Bengali art, culture, and heritage. The second chapter of our Think Tank series was held in August and was titled Reflections and Relevance of Heritage in the Modern Era. In this webinar, BHF partnered with the Indian Journalists Association and British Council to explore colonialism and its legacy. The webinar was held in the backdrop of our annual commemoration of Prince Dwarkanath. BHF has played a pivotal role in renovating the monument of Dwarkanath Thakur in Kensal Green Cemetery. His pioneering work as an entrepreneur and as a social reformer and philanthropist is very relevant in today's world of Indo-British relationships. At BHF, we have focused on our shared heritage, and this webinar was part of our continued efforts to bring heritage into mainstream discussions. And today, we are proud to host the third chapter of our Think Tank series on the legendary Bengali actor Soumitra Chatterjee, who passed away on 15th of November. We are honored and humbled that so many eminent personalities from India, UK, and the US have agreed to join us to reminisce together on his life and work.
Thank you, Amit. And before we go into the formal panel discussion ourselves, we would like to actually invite on stage our dignitaries who have joined us this afternoon. And we'll start off with a message that's been recorded by Her Excellency, the High Commissioner of India in the UK, Srimati Gayatri Isar.
Namaskar. I join the Bengal Heritage Foundation's think tank in paying tribute to the late and legendary Shri Soumitra Chatterjee. For the world of cinema in general and connoisseurs of Bengali films in particular, his passing is a great loss. Shri Soumitra Chatterjee had reigned in a brilliant career in Bengali language films for more than 6 decades. As we are aware, some of the highlights of his career was being awarded in 2012 the Dada Saheb Phalke Award, which is the highest honor in Indian cinema. Later in 2017, another important award was when he was the first Indian film personality to be conferred with the Order of Arts and Letters by the government of France. And his works with another luminary of Indian cinema, Shri Satyajit Ray, won great acclaim and multiple awards from critics and academies around the world. His works have truly made him immortal in our hearts and minds. And for all Indians, Shri Soumitra Chatterjee will remain a cultural icon and an unforgettable hero.
Thank you, ma'am. Her Excellency, Srimati Gayatri Sar Kumar. And now we move on to Barbara Wickham, who's the Minister, Cultural and Educational Affairs, British High Commission in India, as well as the Director of British Council India. It's over to Barbara Wickham.
Your Excellency High Commissioner Gayatri Sar Kumar, Amish Tripathi, Director Nehru Centre London, Saurav Niyogi and many friends at Bengal Heritage Foundation, Malavaki Banerjee and friends at Tata Steel Kolkata Literary Meet, distinguished panellists, ladies and gentlemen from around the world who've tuned into this programme. Namaskar, Namaste, good evening. Amanam, Barbara Wickham. I hope all of you and your loved ones are well. 2020 has been an extraordinary year of losses for the world of arts, culture and education. And it's only right that the British Council remembers and pays its respects to one of the tallest people who walked the world of film, stage, literature, publishing and art, Soumitra Chatterjee, not just in India, but the world. For example, in Bangladesh, where I had the good fortune to lead British Council's work before I took up my current role in India, I remember in what high regard Soumitra was held there. Even as we come to terms with what can only be described as the end of an era and the loss of an exceptionally talented individual, we also celebrate a life that was special, unique, and filled with spectacular achievements. As we gather today to celebrate the life of Soumitra, the actor and the star, we'll also get a glimpse into other facets that made him the very special human being he was. Soumitra was and will always remain an icon of Indian cinema, both parallel and commercial, and the way in which he straddled these two very different genres demonstrates his remarkable abilities. For me, the dimension of his personality that stands out is his modesty, his humility, and the grace and lightness with which he carried his international fame. Soumitra's passing away is an indicator of how difficult and searing the pandemic has been for artists, communities and cultures, and a sense of solidarity is more important than ever. Our partnerships with Bengal Heritage Foundation and Tata Steel Kolkata Literary Arts Meet are two of the specific ways we're building networks and creating a more supportive ecosystem in the cultural space, primarily through festivals, crafts and creative industries. Our Memorandum of Understanding with the Government of West Bengal has helped support the development of even stronger cultural connections between Bengal and Britain in a variety of ways. We've received great support from the Indian High Commission on many occasions, especially around the Education World Forum, and I remain very thankful for that. My colleague, Debanjan Chakrabarti, has spoken about the partnership we had with Nehru Centre in the past, when India was the market focus country at the London Book Fair. Earlier this year, British Council renewed its collaboration with Bengal Heritage Foundation to build further cultural connections through India-UK dialogues, webinars, seminars, lectures and programmes on arts. We will continue our close association with all our partners and look forward to expanding our network of partnerships and step up the momentum of collaborative programming such as this as we aim to celebrate two important anniversaries. Of course, India's 75th year of independence in 2022 and then British Council's 75th anniversary celebrations in India in 2023. We firmly believe that culture connects us, and our long-standing commitments to cultural relations between India and the UK affirms our shared dream for the future. We have with us today an outstanding gathering of speakers from all over the world, all of whom have engaged with Soumitra Chatterjee during different phases of his life. I hope to learn how they've all emerged with different perspectives of who he was and what deep impact he had on all of those who came into contact with him. He will live on in the hearts of all of us who set so much value in the world of theatre, film, literature and the arts. Apnara shobai balo takben, shusto takben. Stay safe and well. Thank you. Dhanyabad.
Thank you, Barbara. That was such a wonderful message from you. And now we move over to some of our guests who are here live in the studio. When I say live in the studio, they've joined in live through Zoom, given the condition that's prevailing around the world. And our next guest who is coming up on stage or on screen is none other than Amish Tripathi, the renowned author, Minister of Culture, High Commissioner of India, UK, and of course also the Director of Nehru Centre, London. Amish, it's over to you.
Thank you so much, Suranjan. It's such a pleasure being here. I'm the Director of the Nehru Centre and Minister of Culture at the High Commission of India. Firstly, my apologies to all of you. My apologies that I wasn't born Bengali. But I should clarify that I spent some years in Bengal, in West Bengal. I studied in Calcutta. And as all who have the privilege of living in Calcutta, as all of them do, I left a piece of my heart in Calcutta as well. As Malvika would know, I never let go of any opportunity to come to Calcutta. Absolutely loved the city. But what Malvika also doesn't know, that my attraction to Bengali culture actually began a lot earlier than the time that I came to Calcutta to study. And that was through the wonderful books Feluda. In fact, I had heard the name Baliganj before I'd even come to Kolkata. And in my mind, you know, Feluda, the personification of Feluda was Soumitra Chatterjee. The first time, I'd read the books earlier, and I saw Sonar Kela. And, you know, I remember even as a child, what my views was, man, what a cool guy. And that truly, as I discovered more and more and saw more movies of Soumitra Chatterjee ji, you know, I think when actors become role models and archetypes and you look up to them and you want to emulate them, that's when you know they have become iconic. I am not Bengali, but movies of Soumitra ji and Sharmila ji continue to remain among my favorites. And I am delighted that the Nehru Centre has been given the honor and the opportunity to partner with this commemoration of an Indian icon, of Bengal's contribution to India and indeed the entire world. I'm so looking forward to seeing the program and the panel discussion between the great people who have been invited here. I'll not take too much time. I'm probably among the least accomplished among all the fine people here, and look forward to the discussions. Thank you for giving Nehru Centre the opportunity to create something, to support something in memory of a true Indian icon, Soumitra ji.
Thank you very much, Amish, for joining in and also joining in at such short notice. As a matter of fact, most of our guests today have joined in at a very short notice, so we are really, really thankful to all of them. And I will now call on the screen someone also very close to us. She is she's been a journalist, but also she's a director of Game Plan Sports and the founder behind the concept of the Tata Steel Kolkata Literary Meet. Malavika Banerjee. Mala, it's over to you.
Thank you, Suranjan. Good evening, friends from Calcutta. It feels very bittersweet to be speaking about Soumitra Da, as some of us know him, 2 weeks after his passing. And as Amish said, when we saw him on screen as teenagers, we would think, wow, what a cool guy. But having had the privilege of hosting him over the years at the Tata Steel Kolkata Literary Meet, the everlasting feeling that I will be left with is, oh my God, what a colossus. The first time the Tata Steel Kolkata Literary Meet hosted him was with Sharmila Di, when they both reminisced about their work with Satyajit Ray. And the warmth of that session on a cool January afternoon is something that will remain one of the highlights of this festival as we approach our 10th year. Soumitra Da then did a play for us. We premiered his play Bush to Me, which he had adapted from one of Tagore's stories. And thereafter, he has come to us in avatars as Feluda, as an author, as a thinker, as a poet, as somebody who does Stella Abriti. The last time we had the opportunity to host him was in 2019. We were running late and he kept showing his watch and saying, you know, what's happening. He was a stickler for time. But in a short while, I realized he had got engaged in the session that was happening. And it was that curiosity for everything that happened around him. I still remember it was a session with 3 young Northeastern writers. He was completely drawn into that session in a matter of minutes, and he lost track of the fact that we were running late. As a person who was much younger to him, I found that curiosity and that desire to know more at any point in life something stellar and truly inspiring about Soumitra Da. I thank Bengal Heritage Foundation and Her Excellency Gayatri Di, as well as Amish of Nehru Center, for the opportunity of collaborating on this very special evening. I won't come between you and several of the speakers who know Soumitra Da so very well. And truly, it's a pleasure to reminisce about this great colossus who wore his erudition, his talent, his stunning good looks with such lightness that all I can say is we can't mourn his passing. We can just celebrate a very wonderful, special, and exceptional life. Thank you once again.
Thank you very much, Mala, for that lovely speech again. And I'll just check with our event coordinators whether we've been able to establish contact with Polomi Bose.
She's not yet on yet. Suranjan, let's progress.
So we'll carry on with the agenda then. So now it gives me great pleasure to actually jump into the core panel discussion for this afternoon. And in order to facilitate the panel and moderate the panel, I've got 2 really great individuals who I've known for quite a while. And when we go into the panel, we'll probably kind of open up the entire screen so that we can see all the interactions. So if any of our panelists or who are kind of planning to come on later on would like to hide their videos, you can, but you're most welcome to keep your videos on as well. That's absolutely fine. And to the introductions then. So coming up next is the Director, British Council, East and Northeast India, Debanjan Chakraborty. And along with him, I have the Subject Leader for Film and Media Studies, Bath Spa University, UK, Shumon Ghosh. So with that, I will actually try to get everyone on the screen together. I'm hoping it shouldn't be a technological challenge for us, but bear with us for a second and we will sort that out for all of you. And before we go into the panel itself, we'll just play a short collage of Soumitra Chatterjee. Debanjan and Shumon, the stage is all yours.
Thank you, Shuranjan. By way of introduction, my name is Dr. Shuman Ghosh. I head the Film and Media program at my university, Bathspa University. And I'm talking to you from Wiltshire, where it is a cloudy, grey, and damp day made warm by this wonderful presence all around us. I write, I research, and I teach, and a lot of this involves the cinema of India, the cinema of Bengal in particular, the cinema of Satyajit Ray particularly. And Soumitra Chatterjee's work has been an inseparable part of what I have been doing over the past few years. And some of this is about the joy of being able to share with generations of students and generations of fellow academics, generations of curious, interested viewers, some wonderful aspects of our culture. I come to this panel, therefore, as an admirer, as much as someone who has been influenced by his work, like millions of my generation. Over to you, Debanjan.
Thank you, Shumanda. I think you've said it very well. This is indeed the winter of our discontent. Those of us who belong to Bengal by birth, in spirit, or by association, like Amish, we have lost Feluda and Maradona in the space of just a few days. I certainly lost a very large slice of my childhood this month. Soumitra Chatterjee was Bengal's Seminos Greece in culture. Protean talent who combined the worlds of film, theatre, literature, publishing, and arts in his tall presence. This evening, British Council India is indeed privileged to partner the Indian High Commission, Nehru Centre, Bengal Heritage Foundation, Tata Steel Kolkata Literary Meet in this program, commemorating one of the greatest talents we've seen in India. On stage, his performance in the title of Raja Lear, directed by Shuman Mukhopadhyay, was possibly one of the finest renderings of Shakespeare's King Lear in any language anywhere in the world. He launched Nimai Ghosh and Andrew Robinson's landmark book, Satyajit Ray, A Vision of Cinema, at an unforgettable event at British Council Library many years back. I remember being assigned the duty of fetching him from his Golf Green residence on that occasion. And that evening, I had the most thrilling car journey of my life. In between sparkling and candid conversations, I happened to have lit Feluda's cigarette as our car was stuck at Lake Gardens railway crossing. The flyover wasn't there then. Like Shumanda, my co-host here, I started my career as a journalist with the Telegraph, and I used to review films a lot. And I remember reviewing Gautam Ghosh's Dakha, which remains to my mind as one of the finest performances by Soumitra Chatterjee outside of Ray films. I have to relate a very interesting encounter that I had with him, my first kind of encounter with him when I was preparing for my master's exams in Jadavpur, and I'd gone to photocopy a copy of Sight and Sound, which I'd picked up from British Council Library. And this was in Lake Gardens More, and I felt a very light tap on my shoulder as I was about to photocopy those magazines. And there he stood, Soumitra Chatterjee, and he asked me in his inimitable Bangla, where did you find Sight and Sound? And I said, look, I've picked these up from British Council Library. And I was really absolutely in awe, and that conversation didn't proceed much further. But what really came across, I've always thought about that unusual encounter, that his magnetic curiosity that Mala, you mentioned, really was something extraordinary. What I cannot imagine in any other film actor of his stature going to a photocopy shop in a very middle-class neighborhood and then striking a conversation with a completely unknown young chap about a film magazine. So that was Soumitra Chatterjee for me. Like Shumanda, I'm an acolyte of his films. Back to you, Shumanda, to take this forward.
Thank you, Debanjan. And we have the opportunity here of listening to some remarkable people. It is a great privilege to be here with these speakers who are whose contribution to our world of culture, to the world of arts, to the world of letters is brilliant in itself. And they join this panel in paying tribute to and celebrating the work of Soumitra Chatterjee. And the first of these is Kaushik Sen. Ever since he made his debut in Mrinal Sen's Ek Din Pratidin, Kaushik Sen has steadily created a space for himself as one of Bengal's most powerful actors. Equally important has been his contribution to the stage as director in his theatre group, Shapna Sandhani. And his collaboration with Soumitra Chatterjee is, of course, a very well-documented one. And one of their most celebrated successes on stage was the production Tik Tiki. As an award-winning director and actor who straddles both stage and screen, which is in many ways reminiscent of Soumitra Chatterjee himself, we welcome this recording from Kaushik Sen to this discussion.
I was introduced to Soumitra Chatterjee at a very critical phase in my life. My father, who was my first teacher, was not well at that time, and our family was also in a very critical stage. And I was working in a private chartered firm. And at that point of time, it seemed to me that I won't be able to become an actor. In that critical phase, my father received a letter from Mr. Soumitra Chatterjee that he wanted me to act in one of his theatres, professional theatre in Shambazar. The Shambazar theatre can be compared to, the Drury theatre of England. And that point of time, the professional theatre in Bengal was quite vibrant. So my father agreed, and my not only my acting career, but my entire life changed because of that letter. I would like to say only one thing about Soumitra. A lot can be said, but we don't have that much time, and I am sure that a lot of important people are here who can say far more better things about Soumitra. I would like to say about one particular aspect of Soumitra Chatterjee's theatre. He believed in professional public theatre because to him, the most number of people, common people, at that point of time, they used to come from the mafsil, from the villages, to Kolkata to watch the professional theatre. Yet, at that phase which I'm talking about, early, late 80s, at that point of time, professional theatre in Bengal was in a turmoil because a lot of bad productions were happening at that point of time. Taking the advantage of stardom, taking the advantage of the participation of the common public in the public theatre, a lot of producers, a lot of actors and directors were not producing good plays at that point of time. Soumitra Chatterjee was the only one at that phase who really staged very important plays in professional theatre, which can be compared with the group theatre movement in Bengal. He was the only one who was doing this. He was continuously doing something experimental, even in the public theatre, where a lot of money was involved, where a lot of people from the from the common background they were coming. They were exposed to kind of a theatre which they never experienced before. So Soumitra Chatterjee, since he had his training from Shishir Kumar Bhaduri, and Shishir Kumar Bhaduri was the one, we all know, he changed the course of Bengali as well as the Indian theatre at one point of time. Soumitra Chatterjee got influenced by Shishir Bhaduri, and he used that training, that experience, and did some wonderful work in Bengali professional theatre. But later on, when finally the professional Bengali theatre in Bengal collapsed. The theatre which exists now this is the mainstream theatre, that is this, non-professional theatre groups which still are working and doing very good work in Kolkata as well as in various parts of Bengal. Soumitra Chatterjee became a part of that. He never left theatre. I mean, he was a star. He could have earned a lot more money if he had wanted to, but he still always associated himself with theatre movements and various kind of experimental theatre works. So that's the one aspect I wanted to talk about, that he did a very solid work for the Bengali theatre, and if we just look back to his theatre works, if we just keep his films aside, we'll find that he did some extraordinary work in theatre, and that's how I learned, not only as a professional film actor, but as a theatre practitioner, as a theatre director. I learned a lot from him, and it's really unfortunate that just before he was hospitalized, we had an opportunity of me, another very important actor of Bengal, Dev Shankar Haldar. We had a very interesting discussion with Mr. Chatterjee, and he was, at that point of time also, he was thinking a lot about doing something new, and he was extremely excited to do a new kind of theatre after this COVID, after this pandemic, and he was looking forward to it. He was not at all disillusioned. He was not tired. He was not he was not frustrated. But he was looking forward that this pandemic, even after this pandemic, he was searching for a new language. He was searching for a new space where theatre can be done in a different way after this pandemic. So that's Mr. Soumitra Chatterjee for you. Evergreen, ever vibrant, ever energetic. That's my teacher, Soumitra Chatterjee.
What a wonderful tribute from Kaushik Sen. And of course, one of the things that we remember from Soumitra Chatterjee's first film, Upur Sangsar, is that magnificent moment where late at night he is with his friend walking down Tala Bridge, and he recites lines from Dinabandhu Maitra's play Shadabar Akadoshi, and the grace and the cadence through which he sort of recites these lines is actually something which has become part of folklore. This, in a sense, is where the icon is made. And this is basically the first of our themes for this evening, the making of the icon. The icon is made through his influences. Shishir Babu was one of them. Soumitra Chatterjee has also mentioned Ahindra Chaudhuri on occasion. And one of the things that we see is an effortless movement between theatre and cinema. And that is something I think that Kaushik Sen's account gave us a clear glimpse into. I'll hand this over to Devanjan at this point in time to take you forward with the next segment.
Thank you, Shumanda. We are indeed very fortunate to have with us this evening two people, Sharmila Tagore and Parambrata Chatterjee. Sharmila ji was, of course, the first person with whom Soumitra Chatterjee shared screen space with in Upur Sangsar. And Parambrata Chatterjee, he is the person with whom Soumitra Chatterjee shot last. I mean, the biopic that Parambrata was making with him. I'll come to you first, Param, with a very quick introduction for Param for everyone tuning in. Parambrata has established himself as, had already established himself as one of the most prominent actors in the Bengali film and television industry when he rose to national fame with Sujoy Ghosh's Kahani. Paramita has made a very successful transition to the world of producing and directing, and he has done several well-received films, including Obhijan, the film that Param had scripted and was working with Soumitra Chatterjee just before he got admitted. Param is joining us from Solang Valley in Himachal. Param? Are you with us? Param, you're on mute.
Yes, I am. I am.
Right.
I am now.
And
Sorry
it's
about that.
great
Sorry.
to have you with us this evening. I wanted to ask you about the kind of formative influences. Soumitra Chatterjee, as we know, was one of the most thinking individuals Bengal has ever produced. And I'm deliberately avoiding the word intellectual to avoid a certain cliche about us. What were his formative influences for him in terms of the world of ideas that he explored?
Well, I think to begin with, good evening to everybody, to the entire panel here. We've got some lovely people and and people that I really look up to. And thanks for having me on this panel as well. Through my set of interactions that I've had with him over the past 1 year, in course of making the film and right before that, what I realized was he was essentially a man of ferment. And by that, I mean intellectual ferment. And I think his transition as a man in his late teens from the village, the town of Krishnanagar in suburban or rural Bengal to Calcutta of the 50s, of the early 50s. Well, incidentally, I should mention that Miss Wickham, I think she mentioned, how well he's received in Bangladesh. I think it is very, very important that when we are speaking on behalf of a Bengal Heritage Foundation, we also take into account the largest Bengali gathering in Bangladesh, and Bangladesh is all over the world, and that's very crucial. I think we should not miss out on that by any means. And the other point is that I have had the good fortune of spending quite a lot of time in Bangladesh working on several projects, and I've seen that how they consider Soumitra Chatterjee to be one of theirs, almost, because originally his family hailed from this little village called Koya in the Khulna district, in the Jessore district of Bangladesh, actually. Rather, I think it's Kushtia and Jessore cusp. Anyway, so, but yeah, he grew up in Krishnanagar, and when I think the move to Calcutta, the Calcutta of the 50s, the city right after independence, right after a very bloody, the very bloody partition, and a society which was still carrying the stigmas of the trauma of partition, a society which was also trying to look at itself in a fresh perspective, and the ferment that Calcutta was at that point in time, the sort of the rise of the leftist movements, which he was essentially a part of. All of that, I think, kind of made him the man that he went on to be, and the ferment that he was looking for to satiate his intellectual quests. I think the city of Calcutta of the 1950s, that is what the city provided him with. And also I should mention that he used to, in course of our conversations, in course of our addas, he used to mention names of some very otherwise unknown people. Like, for instance, he used to mention the name of this gentleman called Gaur Mohan Mukhopadhyay, who happened to be his senior, I think, in school or college, who first taught him to read the correct books. I mean, you can read voraciously, but I think he was the first gentleman to teach him or to tell him that there should be a path which you should be following in terms of reading. And also his initiation into Marxist ideas and everything, all of that happened at that time, at that particular time. And I think that is the time, the early mid-50s in the city of Calcutta, right after partition, that created the artist, the consummate artist that Soumitra Chatterjee went on to be. Of course, there is Shishir Bhaduri in it in terms of theater. Of course, the films which were happening. By the way, I don't think they were too happy with the kind of films which were being made before the advent of Satyajit Ray. I don't think their generation was too happy with the kind of films being made. On theater, they were extremely passionate about theater, especially that of Shishir Bhaduri. The coffee house, their contemporaries like Ashok Chattopadhyay, Ashunil Gangobadhyay, all of that. I think Devanjana, you're on mute.
No, I was deliberately on mute. I had to carry on, please.
I thought you were talking. So yeah. So I think the contemporaries like Shokti Chattopadhyay, Sunil Gangopadhyay, Shondipan, this at coffee house, exchanging ideas. I think that was his earliest influence. And I should mention, it would be a sacrilege not to mention the original and the most important influence of his life, and that is Tagore. I think Tagore's influence was so much on him that his contemporary poets would actually pull his leg, saying that no matter how much you try to write modern poetry, the fragrance of Tagore seems like, you know, looming very large on your poetry, and that it looks like it's never going to go. And he was absolutely not complaining about it. He embraced Tagore. He understood Tagore like I think very few other people have so far. So I think this is the amalgamation that made him the artist that he went on to be. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Param, for setting out that framework. And it's quite interesting that you should mention Tagore, because I picked up, I think in one of the news coverage after he passed away, that there were just two pictures in his portraits in his study. One was that of Tagore, other was of Ram Mohan Roy. And that I think spoke volumes about the man. I mean, he didn't have Satyajit Ray's portrait there. I mean, of course, we know what a profound influence he must have been, the filmmaker, but it's quite interesting. Just out of curiosity, and it's a cheeky question, I know he was a big sports fan and I think hockey was his favorite game, but did he support Mohun Bagan or East Bengal?
I think he supported Mohun Bagan. Yeah. He used to play a lot of hockey, but actually he was really very fond of cricket. I don't think he was that much into football personally, but any Bengali would have a slice of football in him or her. So yeah, but I think he really enjoyed and appreciated the sport of cricket, and like talking about it. He had also played a healthy dose of cricket in his youth. Yes, but I like the point that you mentioned, that there were two portraits in his study, which I have seen myself, and a lot of us here have seen actually, and. I'll just take the liberty of kind of explaining that in as short as possible. So yeah, so you know, it's no wonder that he did not have Satyajit Ray's portrait in his study, because he was not a man who lived by the fame or the accolades or his professional accolades that he had accumulated over the years. He is somebody. I'm sorry, I still keep saying he is somebody, because it's very difficult to imagine a city, my city, without him, or our world without him. He was somebody who lived by the intellectual core of his existence, not by the accolades he had collected on the way. He enjoyed the accolades very much. He loved them. He really cherished them. But he lived by the fundamental ideas which made him an artist. So there's no one. I'm not surprised. I was never surprised that when I saw only Tagore and Ram Mohan Roy in his study.
Right. I'll come back to you, Param, in a short while. We also have with us Sharmila Tagore, who is probably one of the most eminent actresses to work in the Hindi film industry, but she was known to Bengali film audiences much before that. Welcome, Sharmila ji. Just for the sake of audiences who have tuned in from all over the world, Sharmila ji made her film debut with Soumitra Chatterjee in Opur Shangshar, the final film of the Opur trilogy, World of Opur, in 1959, when she was only 13 and Chatterjee 24. She remained one of Satyajit Ray's favorite female protagonists. She's been awarded 2 National Film Awards and Padma Bhushan by the government of India for her outstanding work in film industry. But I have a very vivid memory of meeting Sharmila ji very late in the evening when we were traveling with Ian Rankin, and Sharmila ji has such varied interests, and in some ways you could see why she had this lifelong friendship with Soumitra Chatterjee. Sharmila ji made such enormous effort to come in and meet Ian very late at night. She was trying to make it in time for the event Ian had in Delhi. He was stuck in traffic, I think, and then even then we met up and had a lovely adda that went into the wee hours of the morning. Sharmila ji, welcome, and you're joining us from Delhi. The question I have for you, Sharmila ji, is that both of you started your acting careers together, and you've been a leading romantic pair in Bengali film for decades. You've spoken very warmly about your friendship with him and the high professional regard each of you had for the other. Tell us a little bit about the man. How was he on set and off?
When you say that we were the leading romantic pair for decades, it's very interesting that you say that, because actually we haven't really worked in that many films. But I think the films that we made had a tremendous impact for decades.
Yes,
yes. So that's the point I want to make. And I worked with him in Upur Sangshar first, and when I was 13 and he was 23, and that was our first film. So when I look back at my professional partnership with Soumitra, if you please, I view it as in phases, because the early phase, which gave us Upur Sangshar and Devi, when I was just a schoolgirl. And then when I went back, there was a gap. Then I came back, and then I worked in films like Bornali, then Kinu Goalar Goli, and few other films. And Bornali was such an interesting story made by Ajoy Kaur, which was just a happening for one evening. And it's so beautiful. And Soumitra looks so gorgeous in, Dhuti Punjabi, and, like everybody has said, Quinton, like a Bengali person. And then I went off to Bombay, and then I came back a slightly more matured practitioner and worked in Days and Nights of the Forest. And then much later, Abar Arunne. So you can see that there hasn't been that many films. But I think that very first film, the film that we worked together in, Upur Sangshar, set the tone. Like I said, I was 13, he was 23. It was our age, the complete innocence, the fortitude and utter sort of optimism that we faced life with made us space in everybody's heart, as Barun Ratu says, in both the Bengals. And that continues to live on. So somewhere in their collective imagination, Uppu and Apurna is the most romantic pair possible, I mean, only after Romeo and Juliet, perhaps. But maybe I'm biased, but I think it is that has lived on. And that is what you say when you say that it's been for decades. And when you say that, how was he on the set?
And off the set, I think, on set and off set.
On the set, he was a professional. Although Manikda, when we worked with Manikda, all of us got scripts, but he didn't encourage us to read it. He didn't want us to memorize our dialogue. But Soumitra, of course, worked because he was such a committed actor, and also the theatre influence from Shishir Bhaduri, etc. So he had made a complete backstory in his mind. What would that character be doing? And apparently Manikda also encouraged him. He says, well, perhaps he didn't do that. Perhaps he didn't go to the coffee house. Maybe maybe you went to see a cinema. So they would have that kind of discourse about the character. So, so on the set, he was very enthusiastic. Even if he was not required on the set, he would still be present, give us cues, stand there for, the line, the eye line for us to, to help us. He didn't overwhelm us with his presence, but he was there when we needed him, So he was, and his language, because he had such a hold on the language, the Bengali language. It was a pleasure to hear him, So he brought so many modulations, and so it really was a learning for me, especially to see how he was delivering those dialogues. And so many different
change over time. I mean, it's a 6-decade-long.
And then for Charulata, apparently, the script that we follow, we write, is more Tagorean. But there existed a script before, which was, more pre-Tagorean. And Manikda asked him to practice that, that kind of handwriting. And he did that. So I think he was very diligent. And off the set, he was a riot. He was such an addabaz, and he could sing, he could recite, he would regale you with so many anecdotes. And it was, we did this, Arunet Din Ratri was entirely shot outdoors. And this was this big gang of us. And we did so many crazy things. And I will cherish every moment of that outdoor. And then much later, we did Abar Aranye. The gang had shrunk. There was only Soumitra, Shubhendu, and Shobhit Bhanjo. Despite his, advanced cancer, he didn't want to be left out of the film. He came, and then again, Soumitra was center stage with Shubhendu in his addas, and his scholarship and his knowledge, in-depth knowledge about everything, and I would just listen to him spellbound. So Manikda, of course, mentored him, but he grew to be, he became a giant of an actor, and he had a parallel successful career, with Manikda. Although he worked with Manikda in 14 films, but he had made 350 films. So he made so many other films. I remember seeing his Koni, as a swimming coach, which was such a delightful performance. Then in Chinder Bundi, where he was a audacious villain, he played that role so well. So in everything, and post Manikda, Shazir Bati and so many other films that he, Bala Sheshe, and as Porambroto's film, he was doing a biopic. Yeah. And from the set, he went to the hospital. So he was a workaholic. Well, workaholic, I don't want to call him a workaholic, like a Karamveer, he just wanted to work, and he wanted to interpret his characters. And that's why perhaps he liked theater so much. Right. Because he could change his, he could do different things. He could experiment with, how to play a character in different ways, because everybody has already said that how curious he was, how he wanted to explore and go to a different space. So that was Soumitra, yes.
That's very interesting what you said, Sharmilaji. I was just wondering that if you could tell us a little bit about the persona of the star. I mean, both you and Soumitra Chatterjee were in some ways, you are sort of stars that, India, Bengal, the world look up to. Was it, when you were acting in Satyajit Ray films, I mean, some of your most iconic films with Soumitra Chatterjee, Opu Songshar, Debi, Arunet Din Ratri, when you were paired together, was it different working with Satyajit Ray, with Soumitra Chatterjee, and working with Soumitra Chatterjee with other directors?
Yes, well, Manikda was a very different kind of a filmmaker. He pioneered a different kind of films to Bengal, the kind of films we hadn't seen before. He changed the background music. There was no orchestra playing. There would be a tap dripping or a bird chattering somewhere. So different kind of radio blaring next door or a fan whirring. So different kind in pictorially, sound-wise, he changed the dialogues. The dialogues became more spoken, more colloquial, more bilingual, the way we speak. So, but the other directors were also, like I said, Bornali, the film that we worked in, was very good. And Gautam Ghosher Abar Arunno, I got for the National Award for supporting actress in that film. So they were good. But the world vision that Manikda had, which transcended culture and language, boundaries. Right. That ability, of course, Mrinalda had that, and Ritik Ghatuk, of course, had that. But the others perhaps, didn't quite have that. And also Manikda's commitment to work, like Manikda would not take anybody in his films unless he was 100% convinced that that particular person suited his character. Because I and Reena tried so hard to be in Ghare Baire, but he would hear of us, And we tried very hard, but he didn't take us. Whereas the other directors, perhaps, the popularity of the pair, the actors, would influence their choice, perhaps. So
one of the things we hear often, I don't know whether it's anecdotal, maybe Param could throw light on it, that Soumitra Chatterjee wanted to be in Nayok, which he wasn't preferred choice. But you have acted with Soumitra Chatterjee as Satyajit Ray's leading lady and with Uttam Kumar as the leading lady in one of Manikda's films. How was it different?
Also, Soumitra wanted to be in Gupi Ga in Bagha Bayan, I think. So Manikda said, as a Chasha, as a peasant, I can't imagine you. Soumitra tried very hard. He says, in my mind's eye, I can't accept you as that. So that was a lost case. Here, Manikda chose Uttam Kumar because Uttam Kumar was a star in real life. Right. And he wanted that instant identification, So, and Uttam was very good. And Uttam, if I may say so, because, Uttam Kumar is a legend. But I feel, having seen him work with me, especially that last scene, he sends for me from the chair car, and then he's a bit inebriated, and he's talking about himself, and there Manikda read out the scene to him in front of me, and Uttam did it. But having seen both, I could say Uttam did about 75% of that. So I don't know, I say with much, but I feel that Uttam changed his dialogue delivery and the way he performed post Manikda. I think, he did that. So, and also he was a star, and he had an idea of stardom. And in film Nayok, the hero also reflects that. He says, in order to be a star, you have to maintain a certain kind of distance from your public. There has to be a aura of mystery around you. You can't be accessible. So even when I worked in Nayok and then Omanush in Bengali and in Hindi, and then worked in another Hindi film with him. In Kolankini Kankabati, he directed me. But that respectful distance remained. I couldn't become his pal. He never really let his guard down.
Right.
I think so. But Soumitra, because perhaps we started together, so there was a instantaneous bonding, there was this very natural and organic friendship that grew and became better over the years. And from that common beginning, we went our different ways, but never lost touch. And he was so much more accessible to everybody. Like you said, or somebody said, that he went to a photocopying place and started a conversation with this total stranger, because he depicted those characters and he wanted to be amongst them.
Yeah.
He didn't want to create this artificial distance. So the way they approached their craft or their idea of stardom was different, whereas Uttam stayed somewhat behind a closed door. He was open and he was curious. He wanted to learn more. I mean, so many people have already said about his curiosity, his wanting to learn more. So
it's really a fascinating insight, Sharmilaji. If I could just sort of come to Param on that question of curiosity and also stardom. Param, you obviously directed him on for Obhijan, his last film work, as it shall be when it comes out. What came through? Was he a consummate actor, the person, a star? What is your abiding memory of working with him on the sets of Obhijan and directing him? You're on mute, Param. Sorry.
Sorry. This is technology getting into the way time and again. Yes. So I think what came through was not just an actor or a star, but I think for me, Shumanda is here, Shuman Ghosh. I mean, we have got two Shuman Ghoshes here. Right now, I'm referring to Shumanda as in the filmmaker Shumanda. And Shumanda and I, we've always had discussions about what it takes or means to be an artist. Not the artist who paints, but the artist with an E. And for me, Soumitra Chatterjee is somebody who represented his times at each and every phase of his life and career. And he is the most consummate artist that I have in my, within my limited experience that I have come across. I think a lot of people might agree with me on this. And I'm going to take a leaf out of Sharmila Auntie's, what she just mentioned, because I think she really, having known him so well for so many years, I think she exactly pointed out the difference between the ideas about stardom that he had, that he shared, the difference that he shared in ideas with another legend, that is Uttam Kumar. And that kind of defines, that goes to say a lot about the way Soumitra Chatterjee envisioned himself, his career, and the world, his worldview in general. He made something very clear that if you would ask him that, so do you think that you were not you never really became the star that Uttam Kumar became? And he would cut you short and tell you, I was a star from day one. And he was. He still is. He always will be. But he also made it very clear that I am, and I always will be a star on my own terms. There will be nothing that will define how I wish to be remembered. I will define how I wish to be remembered. And he wanted to learn from every single individual he met in his life. He wanted to learn, he wanted to take a leaf out of their books. Every person, like I'll just share two anecdotes. And one morning I was at his place to have my kind of research / chat session with him, which was very, very enjoyable. It usually used to be in the evening, but one day it was in the morning, and then I found this sort of within quotes this very common gentleman who turned out to be an organizer of shows, these shows that happen over winter in different parts of Bengal. And I sat and listened to their chat, to them chatting for a bit, and then later on, when he left, when this gentleman had gone, when he had left, I went and asked Soumitra that, how come is it that you kind of get along with such people as well? Don't you think don't you find it difficult to interact with people from such a different background, from, they don't know, that they are not so well read as you are? And he said, no, I mean, that is the idea, that I want to enrich myself from knowledge from all spheres of life, from all walks of society. What he gives me, or what a person like him or her gives me, I don't think you can, or I don't think my friends in theater can. I don't think Kaushik or Shuman Mukherjee can, actually. So he knew how to percolate down the social strata to pick up little gems from and all of that went to build and went into constructing his worldview and his vision about life in general, his philosophy about life. One more anecdote: we were shooting for a particular film, not the film that I directed, not the film that I made on him. There was another film, and he, as Sharmila Auntie just pointed out, that he was extremely fond of chatting, and he would just chat up about anything with anyone, not with anyone, only the people that he liked chatting with, and they could be anybody. It could also be a spot boy, as I mentioned, or somebody very erudite. It just didn't matter. But he would pick his favorite like chatting company, and so we were chatting on the sets, and somebody was a co-actor of ours was very pompously mentioning, how Uttam Kumar once actually had spotted Soumitra Chatterjee, filling in fuel at a petrol pump, at a gas station, into his car, and how Uttam Kumar later on called on Shubhendu to tell him that you should not be doing this because, you're a star now, and people should not have such a direct access to you. People should not get to see you so easily. That just breaks your stardom. And this gentleman, our co-actor, was very fondly narrating this story as if it's a great philosophy which everyone should follow. That was his idea, or Uttam Kumar's idea of stardom. And Soumitra Chatterjee was listening to it, like he allowed him to complete his entire narration, his story, and then suddenly said, "Yeah, I loved that man. I loved Uttam Da, and we loved each other very, very dearly," which they did. They were extremely fond of each other. They were poles apart, but they used to love each other very much. And he said that I still remember him, and I remember him so fondly. But I don't agree with this. I do not agree whatsoever with this idea of stardom. I'm sorry. I think my stardom lies in if at all I have any stardom, that lies in my intellect, that lies in my what I have created, what I leave behind, and what I wish to create, what I strive to create every day. And art is for people. This exclusive idea of stardom, I'm sorry, but I do not subscribe to this idea. It was as clear as that, and that will always stay with me. That will always resonate with me, especially in these times when more and more we see stars and people creating this sort of aura around themselves, and this sort of entourage that surrounds them. And as Sharmila Auntie was again pointing out, that this kind of safe distance that they maintain from so-called regular people. He absolutely didn't believe in that. And from the very first day that I met him, when I was all of 21, way back in 2001 or 2002, what has always struck me is this enormous amount of comfort that he has about his own self. He was never bothered about, like, okay, these people should not come near me. They should treat me in such a way. Of course, he put his foot down when it came to certain principles, but then he knew how to be amongst everybody and interact and engage in an exchange with every single individual.
Thank you, Param, for sharing those really illuminating insights into the life that you witnessed from up close. May I hand back the baton to Shubhanda in England to take this forward?
Thank you, Devanjan, and thank you, Sharmila ji and Param, for incredible insights into the mind of the icon. And somewhere we have sort of slipped from the first theme that we were thinking of into the second, which was to talk about Soumitra Chatterjee and the idea of stardom. And what we are looking at is somebody who is iconic, but has also left a deep influence on a lot of people, some of them from industry, but many millions of others outside it. And that is what we talk about when we talk about impact. The impact of the actor is in the audience. And it is in the audience through which this impact is felt. It is felt beyond the screen. It is felt beyond the theater stage. It is felt in town halls. It is felt in stage shows. It is felt in workshops. And we have with us Soumitra Chatterjee. And Kaushik is an IT consultant. Kaushik works with Cognizant Technologies. But Kaushik has been infected for a very long time, like millions of others, with a love of theater, a lot of which has had to do with the work of Soumitra Chatterjee. Over to you, Kaushik.
Thank you, Shubhanda. I hope I'm audible. First of all, I'm honored and humbled in this august company. As an audience, my first tryst with Soumitra Chatterjee was with Hirok Rajadeshe. 5 years old, youngest of the cousins, platoon, marching towards Prachi Cinema Hall. Honestly, did not realize the Ray's magic or neither for Soumitra Chatterjee in those years. Then grew up with Feluda, which Soumitra Chatterjee became synonymous with. Later teens and early 20s, of course, being a film buff, Bollywood, Tollywood, even his commercial flicks like Pratishod, okay, watched mostly and used to boast if Bollywood has Nasiruddin Shah, we have Soumitra Chatterjee. Life meandered, time went past. Watched his legacy creations of Satyajit Roy, Tapan Sinha, and a couple of Mrinal Sen. Many a times, he evolved differently to me. The movies meant differently. But I would say I was fortunate also to watch him a couple of theaters, early 20s when I was in mid 90s at Tik Tiki and later on Raja King Lear. So, but as an audience, what I would say is I never met him in person. I never ever met him. But he always gave me that feeling of Kachir Manush. So what Param and Sharmila ji mentioned, that stardom bit, I think that mattered the most for him. And as an audience, I'm humbled to say that I lost someone very close to me. I always, I kept watching his movies, even the recent ones, one of the best ones with Param and Riddhi, Shravantoral. And he also amazed me with that enormous passion at this age for the craft. I think there's loads to learn from him, even as an audience who hasn't met him ever. That's all I can say, Shubhanda.
Thank you, Kaushik. And the audience response is a particularly key one because it gives us a sense of how incredible the reach of the influence of actors and stars is. And film industries, of course, find their way through different moments and stories change and narratives change. I will look at a particular moment in time in my own life, look back. This was in the 1990s when I used to do the round of Taliban studios as an erstwhile journalist. And there I met a young actress, and she was making her mark on the floors of the technician studios and the near theater studios. and Indrapuri Studios. And thereafter went on to establish herself as one of the industry's finest, with a string of much admired and many award-winning performances. This includes nearly 25 films with Soumitra Chatterjee, including, for instance, Paromita Rakdin, and more recent successes like Balasheshe and Praktan, as well as one of Soumitra Chatterjee's final films, Balashuru, whose release we await. We welcome Rituparna Sengupta, who joins us from Singapore. Rituparna. Hello, Rituparna.
Hello. Am I okay? I mean, can you hear me?
Yes, you are. Yes, we can hear you, we can see you.
Yeah, thank you. Yes.
Thank you for joining.
Thank you very much for inviting me. It's been a great pleasure for me to be here in this panel.
And I briefly mentioned the 1990s because your debut film, Shesh Chiti, was with Tanuja and Soumitra Chatterjee, and here you were, and you were working with two stalwarts of the industry. So what was it like as a newcomer to work with actors of such experience and repute before you went on to make your own definitive mark on the industry?
Yeah, I mean, it was mid-90s, I think. I was just facing the camera that time. I mean, with my debut film was Shetpathruthala, and very close to Shetpathruthala, I did Shesh Chiti, which actually introduced me to this towering personality, the hero of our childhood, Soumitra Chatterjee. So, of course, we grew up seeing his films, and it was a bonus for me to get Soumitra Chatterjee and Tanuja Aunty together in one set. And again, a legendary pair for that matter. So, of course, I was like in awe of them. So, it was like, I was like, oh my God, what I'm seeing. So, I think Soumitra Chatterjee was absolutely fabulous. It was like 25 years back, and he was even more younger, and he looked absolutely vibrant, handsome, and we were all in awe of him. Like, Soumitra Chatterjee was the most handsome man I've ever seen in my life, because with his diction, his the way he he presented himself, the way he walked, the way he talked, the way he, his grace was all about, to watch too. So obviously, Soumitra Chatterjee's presence was absolutely outstanding on sets, and I was little shaken to work with him, because in my very early as a debut, I'm a debut actor that time, so it was very difficult for me to gauge a personality like him. So obviously, I was a little shy, and I couldn't get there to talk to him and be comfortable with him. But then the director was directing me, and then there was a line I was just getting wrong. Then Soumitra Chatterjee was so calm and patient. It was late in the night, I think almost 11 p.m. We were shooting for some very difficult scene, and there were a lot of dialogues happening within too many actors. So I was a little puzzled to hold the word, where to take the cue, where to just get into that proper mode of the expression, where I had to shift one my face from here to there. I didn't have any idea of the camera, but he was so comforting, and he said that no, she can do it, she will do it, and she will perform well. Just give her some time. He didn't know anything about me. He didn't even, I didn't come from a background where I had any experience about acting or anything of that sort. So, but he just treated me so comfortably that newcomer, I got treated like a queen on the set. So that was Soumitra Kaku. He was like he was like an inspiration for me. And from that from that onset, I was like, I became so comfortable with him, and I used to come and discuss with him things later on when I had any problem. I used to like discuss with him, Jetu, is it okay? I mean, how do I do it? How do I perform? How do I see things? How do I get into the skin of the character? Is it okay? Is it right? So he used to guide me in a very interesting way. He used to always say that you believe in your craft and you believe what you're doing, you will get it right. So he was all about, he was so immersed in his craft. He was so dedicated, and he just, I mean, he was a delight to watch. Anything he did, even he was sitting idle, I mean, he was just thinking something. His expressions were so so believable, so so real. He was such a real person, so that made me he gave us so much. He just gave his life to this industry. So, and with me, I have got so much of experience. After that, every second film he became my father. And and all that commercial pot boilers, I saw him as that angry man, getting into that spirit of scolding the daughter, and then sort of talking to my would-be husband in a very rough tone, that how do you take my daughter and how would you treat my daughter after marriage and all that. So he had that mode of, he could just change instantly. I mean, it was so effortless on his part that he could just be anyone. So I think the characters, he became any character. The character would be anything, but he could become, anything at one shot. I mean, the snap of a finger, he will be a different man. His expressions would change. His facial muscles would react in a different way. So I think his power was so strong, and his vision was so different about any character. When I did Paromita acting with him, I was like, oh my God, I couldn't even relate to that Soumitra Kaku who I worked with in the first film, and then Paromita, acting came after 5-6 years, and where I also matured as an actor. Of course, I also had my share of films in a different mode with him, with this commercial pot boilers, and then I graduated with him with Paromita acting, then Baby Pokko, Raja Shen's Baby Pokko, then Attiyo Shajan, an award-winning film, then with of course Mohanaika, and I did so many. I don't even remember all the names, but then few of these actually created a lot of stir in the industry. So those are the names I should mention. And of course, the commercial part, as you mentioned, the commercial part was so interesting with him that I actually, I was just, it is, I mean, his absence in this industry would be felt in all kinds of films for that matter. It's not about a particular section of films will suffer. It's not like that. I mean, every kind of film will take a notice that somebody, the most powerful man of this industry, is not there anymore. He was like an umbrella to all the characters, whatever, all the characters come under his one umbrella of talent, which is unfathomable, which doesn't have any start or any end. He was like an endless, sort of, he's like a sea of knowledge. I mean, acting or his performances, of course, but then the way he used to educate us, that is also very interesting. There is Soumitra as Param and Sharmila Aunty was mentioning that, he was a riot, like after the shoot when he used to discuss, I caught a few glimpses of his during the Bala Shuru shoot when he was just reciting like a child. And he's that innocence in him, that that effervescent nature in him, it was so helpful for the others to be comfortable, because his whole, you could be like, you could have a different kind of a feeling when he's on the set, like, oh my God, I'm working with some very, very big personality, but there is some kind of an ease in him, like that. I mean, again, I'm saying ease because it's very difficult for us to think that Soumitra Chatterjee is past for us. It can never be, because he has become, he actually became like a habit for us. Soumitra Chatterjee's, Soumitra, as Param rightly mentioned, that without him, this city, without him, our world, we just can't think of it. It's so difficult for us to negotiate with this matter that he is no more. It will never happen with us. He will always be there with us on the sets. He will always be chatting with us. He will always have a cup of coffee with us. He'll always be saying that, hey, ektu muri anto mekhe, we will have it on the set during the break. Like that. Soumitra Chatterjee, we know, who is like that common man who wanted to become a man of the mass. He never wanted to become a star. I mean, he was a star by default, but then he never wanted to become one, or his stardom was nothing to do his stardom was nothing to do with his acting prowess. It is only his talent, his creativity that has been given out to this industry, because we got so much. We're so indebted to him because we have taken so much from him, and it's over these 6 decades, over these years, he has only given us his share of his life, which is absolutely dedicated and completely dabbled in creativity, nothing else but. So I think we are those very fortunate people who have been working with him for years. And Bala Shuru, actually, after this huge success of Bala Sheshe, Bala Shuru, people would definitely wait to watch, where I play his daughter. And very interestingly, I played so many daughters. I mean, so many, and he played father to me in so many films. Every film has a different kind of a tone. Every film had a different kind of an interesting anecdote to share. So obviously, I think this is a huge journey which I actually had with him, and I also matured, as an actor, as a person in these years, where I saw Soumitra Chatterjee, becoming very very different, and and I have seen him from strength to strength. He has developed to become a very different kind of a human being. When I saw him first on the sets of Shesh Chithi to Bala Shuru, there is a huge difference what I noticed in him, where he every moment he became a different person.
Thank you, Rituparna. What you have painted, and I will use the word painted here, what you have painted here is a picture of somebody who was incredibly generous as a human being, generous in terms of the ways in which he was able to share his talent with all of us. And that is something that is a very remarkable part of how Soumitra Chatterjee will be remembered. The other thing that I think, there was a great deal in what you said, but the other thing that I was reminded of is a line by Satyajit Ray, where he says what his idea of a star is. And he says, a star is somebody who continues to remain interesting even after he or she has stopped doing anything. And that, in a sense, is the kind of picture that you were able to paint. It was very vivid. Thank you very much indeed. We talk about Soumitra Chatterjee as a star, and we talk about the ways in which he almost reinvented stardom. And this is something that Sharmilaji and Param and you have sort of described to us in very different ways. A very quick, almost cheeky question. Did you have any tips from him about stardom at all? Being one yourself.
Actually, I don't know. I mean, I think he quite didn't believe in stardom, actually. His ways are very different. He actually, for me, his stardom was his knowledge. His stardom was, he was like a walking encyclopedia. He used to educate us in so many different ways. He used to give us such great insights about life, such, beautiful stories about him. His whole life was all about a lot of things. He actually, when he walked through a lot of bumpy roads, he used to give us a lot of insights about those. So first, I mean, he didn't give me directly anything, any sort of advice about stardom, But what he said was like, never feel shy to express yourself. Never, you should hold your beliefs, your faiths, your sort of principles high, and you should talk about what you want in a very precise way, and you should actually have a choice of films which you want to do, and you should not be influenced by others. So that's one thing, he used to always teach us, that there is at some point you should know what you're doing, and you should be confident enough to perform, or you should confident enough to express your views. So that's the man he was a man of principle. He was a man of, he actually, what made him different was his ways of expression. He actually he got into a lot of things like drama, elocution. I mean, the way he actually professed Bengali language, the way he's taken the Bengali language to the, uh, to the window outside. The whole world became so fond of his poetries, and the way he recited Tagore, the way he recited Jivanananda Das on the sets of, Shuman's film. I still remember Soumitra Chatterjee and Aparna Sen, the two big icons, the two stars. They were discussing Jivanananda Das and Rabindranath. Somebody's reciting Jivanananda Das, somebody's reciting Rabindranath. So that was such a delight to watch them. I think these are the things which I sort of understood, and I think those are the things which he, sort of gave, imbibed in us, that this is what a performer of, a complete performer should do. So that is what I got a sense of stardom from him. I mean, I don't know whether I got any sense of becoming a big star in, like putting your the way how you behave on sets in a very starry way. That's not the way he taught us. He taught us to be, taught us to be a complete performer, and that's the way you can express your stardom. That's the way I feel, that the way he has presented himself to us, because with some very small nuances.
Rituparna, thank you very much. I will now let Devanjan take over the next step of our program here.
Thank you so much, Shumanda. And it was wonderful listening to Rituparna about her perspective on Soumitra Chattopadhyay. Next, we turn to the third and final section of this conversation, as it were, the legacy of Soumitra Chattopadhyay. And we will now come to Naman Ramachandran to give us a slightly different insight and perspective into this giant of a man. Naman, welcome. Thank you for joining us from London. Naman is a journalist and author. He has written two books that I'm enormously fond of: Rajnikant, the definitive biography, and Lights, Camera, Masala, Making Movies in Mumbai. Naman also writes for Variety and Sight and Sound, which I mentioned earlier. Naman is one of the trustees of London International Film Festival. Naman, I'll never forget the backstage tour of BAFTA that you gave me. And I've regaled colleagues with stories of that fantastic bar, but we'll stay away from that for the moment. But I would like to ask you a little bit about the critical reception of Soumitra Chattopadhyay. He has been a critic's choice, I think, for many, many years. But I think there is a little bit of a story there, isn't it? I mean, his critical reception in India, in Europe, in the US, vis-a-vis in Bengal.
Thank you, Devanjan, and thank you all for having me. It's a pleasure to be part of this panel. So in terms of an international reception, I think I'll defer to someone who's far superior to me with words, who I think is the world's greatest film critic. Sadly, she is no longer with us. Her name is Pauline Kael. And she has been quoted extensively in the press, or rather her words have been quoted. I don't know if she's been given credit or not. So essentially what she said was, Soumitra subsumed himself into his roles so much so that he became the roles, and uh, rather than him standing out. So I'd like to read out just 2 lines from her review of Distant Thunder from her book. And where she says, Soumitra Chatterjee raised one-man stock company, which was in the video as well, but I'm going to read out the full quote. Soumitra Chatterjee raised one-man stock company, moves so differently in the different roles he plays that he's almost unrecognizable. He was the passionately romantic Oppu in the last film of the trilogy, the husband in Devi, the suitor in tartan socks and English boots in Two Daughters, which we know better as Three Daughters, the guest in Charulata, the handsome, arrogant leader of the 4 young men in Days and Nights in the Forest, and so on. So he was always a palpable presence in the West. And I'll defer to Shuman, I mean, Miami Shuman, not Bath Shuman in this respect when it comes to awards. But internationally, curiously, Soumitra didn't have too many awards. But the first major, or perhaps the only documentary on him, was made in 1998 by this filmmaker called Catherine Berge in a film called The Gach Tree, which I had the great fortune of seeing on screen at the London Film Festival at the BFI, at the NFT South Bank. Now, that documentary captured the essence of Soumitra in the sense that he was really a tree, a large oak tree who cast a tall and commanding shadow. And that film was produced by Merchant Ivory, who obviously they were instrumental in getting Manikda the Oscar. I mean, they started the process. Now, I'll give you a physical example of how Soumitra was always so much so part of the films that, okay, the BFI's 50th anniversary. One of the films they showed was Distant Thunder. I'm going to tilt my camera slightly. So the BFI chose an image from Distant Thunder to illustrate the entire season. So if you can see, pardon the lighting, it's not even Babita or Soumitra, it's the woman that Babita is talking to that they have chosen to illustrate that image from Distant Thunder. So that is for me, Soumitra, who was so much part of the performances that he became the film. And that is not to say that he did not win international awards. Fairly late in his career, he won the Asia Pacific Film Festival Best Supporting Actor award for Angshuman Chobi, and one of his last films was Bridge, made by this London-based director, a doctor called Amit Ranjan Datta, for which he won Best Actor at New York's Winter Film Awards. So it's not just about awards; it's about recognition as well. And before he got the Dadasaheb Phalke Award, the French recognized him with the pardon my French, Officier des Arts Métiers, which is much before the Légion d'honneur, which he got in 2018, and this was in 1999, and he got the Dadasaheb Phalke in 2012. So that brings us neatly to Miami Suman as opposed to Bath Suman, because his first national award for Best Actor came in Suman's film Padokhep. And I believe he had said no to some consolation prizes earlier. I mean, obviously, we are all operating on the principle that, he was beyond awards and, he was the Gach, as we just mentioned. So, Suman, would you like to say something about Padokhep and how he won the national award for that performance?
I cannot say how he won the national award, but very interestingly, I used to joke with Soumitra that after Padakshep got the national award, people used to get angry. He didn't get for Push Samshar, he didn't get it for Distant Thunder or Oshoni Sanket or whatever. And I used to say that it's not my fault that he didn't win. So Soumitra also used to laugh a lot about that thing that people were so angry, that he was not given for so long. Why did he? So but I'll take it. I used to tell him that well, I started my career riding on your shoulders. So for you, a national award doesn't matter, but I will take it when it got so much of attention after he got the national award. So yeah, so that is how I take it, in the sense that I try to tell people that it's not my fault that he was not given the national award, and it probably started my journey. The attention that his national award got in 2008, I think, or whatever. Yeah.
But internationally, I would say that I've just quoted Pauline Kael, but he's always known as Manikda's one-man repertory company. But obviously he's, as we just said, in Bridge, he was recognized by this New York panel. And the Winter Film Festival is not a Bengali festival or anything. It's a proper New York Film Festival where he was, and that's quite an extraordinary performance where he played this quite a lonely widower. Right. And Bridge, it literally, he's on the bridge when Sandhya Mridul's character tries to commit suicide, and he saves her. And it's about mental health and everything else. So when we showed the film here in London at the BFI, it was quite something, because on the one hand we had the trustees of the Satyajit Ray Foundation, people who have grown up with Manikda and all of that, and an entirely new generation of viewers who probably, it was the first time that they had seen a Soumitra performance on the big screen, and that too, at the British Film Institute. So I would say internationally, he just transcends all barriers. Shimon?
Oh, you're asking which Shimon? Me?
Either.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Right. No, if I may, Naman, you have deftly saved me from the tricky bit of having to introduce.
There's something in front of your camera. Right. It's better now.
Thank you. There are two Shuman Ghoshes here, and that can be terribly confusing. So I suppose the best thing I should be able to do at this point in time is to introduce my illustrious namesake, who is over and above his academic career and as an economist at Florida Atlantic University. He has distinguished himself in his career as a director of Bengali films over this past decade. And this is where this conversation between you and Naman, Shuman, is so interesting, because it gives us a sense or a perspective of why Soumitra Chatterjee continues to remain relevant internationally right until towards the very end of his career. Over to you, Shuman.
Yeah. So again, thank you very much for inviting me in this illustrious panel. Yeah, you see, to be very honest, I had asked Soumitra Chatterjee in an interview 2 years back, which came out in the Telegraph in his birthday, that why is it that Bengali cinema has not produced anyone of that stature as what he was in an international arena, where and his answer was very interesting. And he said that এখন আর ওরকম ছবি বা হচ্ছে কোথায়, so why will you blame the actors who are not being able to be at that stature? And and Soumitra's popularity or his renown was a lot because of Satyajit Ray films, not even Tapan Sinha or the other great Ajoy Kaur and the other great, because to be very honest, they did not have that international appeal as a Satyajit Ray film. So, so I think that now Soumitra's appeal was more so, it was very important, which Rituparna also said, in the sense that, over the last few years, to be very honest, Bengal has not produced films which has gone on to Cannes, Berlin, or, Venice, those places where Satyajit Ray is, or those give you an international acclaim, say what Irfan got in his last years, or which Nawazuddin yet. So Bengali cinema is not producing that. And because Soumitra Chatterjee was, he did all through his life just Bengali films, so he was restricted in that way. But given the constraints of what Bengali cinema is producing these days, I think he has still made a mark in, at the national level for sure, because some of the films which, say directors of current Bengali scenario, Otanu Ghosh has done, or, if I may humbly say, some of my films which has gone, which Naman said, one of them, Podokep, which won the national award, but even later, I'm extremely fortunate to have worked with him in 5 films. So he is, I think, in a national level, he has felt his presence. His presence has been felt in these films, which have. But it is true that internationally, and I would blame it on, it was not because of his lack of application or, his the type of work he did. Not only survived, I would say, the Bengali film industry, because he was taking part in both commercial ventures as well as, sort of what are called art films, but that distinction of non-commercial and commercial. So he was maintaining that balance. So to answer your question, internationally, to be very honest, I think, so that's why what Naman said, his reception when it was being screened at BFI was very illuminating, because people in this generation has not seen his work in very big film festivals, and very big, I mean like top 5 or even top 10 film festivals in the world. Yeah.
Thank you, Shuman. I have a sort of slightly curious question. What made you cast Soumitra Chatterjee in as many of your films as you did? Was it the nature of the story, or were there other things as well? Of course, it would be the nature of the story. I can completely understand that the director will find actors who are appropriate to his or her story. But beyond that, is there a sort of a wider sense in which Soumitra Chatterjee's appeal held a particular attractiveness for audiences? Would you like to say a little bit about that?
Parental pressure. So in my first 3 films, I worked with Soumitra Chatterjee, and in my 4th film, which was a very experimental film called Shyamal Uncle Tons of the Lights, when I didn't cast him, and I remember my mother once said that, oh, in your this film, Soumitra Babu is not there, as if Soumitra Babu is protecting me as I am going ahead in my career. So I remember, and then I told my mother that, there are films which I will make, which Soumitra Babu, and so there was a discussion with my father and mother, which I happened as to why I had to qualify why Soumitra was not there. But, but on a serious level, one of the things I would say is that there is no option. And let me qualify that statement. Some of the films that I just mentioned to you about, Moiraki or some, even Podokep, there was no option. If he wouldn't have done it, then probably these films would not have been made. So I'm not talking, even films like Bela Sheshe and Bela Shuru, and these films, or Posto, a very popular Bengali film, these films are made with him in mind. And the sad situation now for Bengali cinema is probably these films will not be made, and that implies a lot of commercial loss also for the Bengali films. So the reason I cast him for Podokep was that, I had no other option. And of course, you see, I knew Soumitra Kaku from his days of Dekha. I think Devanjan who mentioned about the Gautam Ghosh film, where I was an observer in the film. That was my first introduction to Bengali films, and and to watch Gautam Ghosh and Soumitra Kaku and those people working. So I knew Soumitra Kaku from 2000, and I made Padakshep in 2005. In the interim, I had maintained touch with him, and I understood that, well, I can make a film with him. It's not that, I will be working with Soumitra Chatterjee and that will affect anything. So there was a relationship which developed over the years. And of course, in the films which there needn't have an old man, as he used to say, that when I first made my Hindi film last year, he said there kono budor role nahi dekho to. So he and there was a mutual for me it was an admiration, for him probably a affinity as like a son, which developed, and making a film was an excuse to be working with him, and to be with him. And as again going back to what Devanjan had said, that he went to bring Soumitra Chatterjee from his home in Golf Green for one of his programs. I used to always, even last time when I went to Kolkata, I used to, for promotional events for my films or whatever, I will go for dinner with him. I made, so many trips I made. I went to his home, and he used to certain times feel embarrassed. Tumi ekhon director, tumi ashcho keno amay tulte? Ami boli na, let it be. I just want to enjoy the moments with you. And those are filled with so much of knowledge, so much of humor, so much of, so that was another reason I would say, Shumon, that as an excuse to making a film is an excuse to be with him, for an elongated period of time. So yeah.
Thank you very much, Shuman. I can scarcely think of a better excuse. And thank you very much, Naman and Shuman, for sort of jointly addressing these wider questions together. I will now hand this over back to Devanjan to take us forward.
Thank you, Shumonda Square in this case. Naman, of course, and we will resume our Adda Naman, hopefully in the BAFTA bar, which I'm enormously fond of. We have with us now Srijato. Srijato is, of course, one of the foremost poets of Bengal. But he also has a number of other facets. I don't know of anyone else who has both won an Ananda Puraskar and a Filmfare Award. Srijato's lyrics in Bangla cinema is hugely sought after. And I have seen Srijato wow audiences with his poetry in Hey on Why. And I hope Srijato doesn't give out too much about that trip. But Srijato, as a poet, as a writer, as someone who works with words, how do you rate Soumitra Chatterjee? What's your take on Soumitra Chatterjee, the poet, the essayist, the publisher? Would like to hear a little bit about that from you.
প্রথমে নমস্কার জানাই।
Srijato, তুমি জয়েন করার আগে একটা ছোট্ট অ্যানেকডোট বলি।
হ্যাঁ বলো, প্লিজ প্লিজ।
So whenever I go to Kolkata, I get in touch with Srijato and Srikanto Acharya, the famous singer, and we try to have a small adda, which I love immensely. আড্ডার কথা যখন হচ্ছে আমি বাংলাতেই বলি এখনো।
প্লিজ। হ্যাঁ
তো প্রত্যেকবার Srijato এবং এর সঙ্গে একটা আড্ডা হয়, এবং লাস্ট ডিসেম্বর প্রায় 1 বছর হতে চললো আমাদের সেই আড্ডাটা হয় সৌমিত্র বাবুর সঙ্গে। আফটার হি পাসড অ্যাওয়ে Srijato আমার মেসেজে লেখে যে আর সেই আড্ডাগুলো হবে না। And that adda where Srikanto was there, Srijato was there, Srijit was there, Soumitra Babu was there. It was a memorable আড্ডা, যেটা 1 বছর আগে আমাদের হয় আর কি। এবং আমি ভাবছিলাম যে এই বছর আবার ডিসেম্বরে আমি যাচ্ছি, সেই বছর হবে বলে। বাট ওই মধ্যমণিটাই নেই আর কি। এবং সিজাতো ইন হিজ পোয়েটিক ওয়ার্ডস আমাকে একটা মেসেজে বললো কি দরবার দিচ্ছে জানো না, তুমি কি বললে ওই ছবিটা
না,
দেখে?
আমার আসলে ওর একটা ছবি, সেদিন উনি একটা টুপি পরে এসেছিলেন, শাল, পাঞ্জাবি আর একটা টুপিটা। আমার মনে হলো যে বাংলার শেষ নবাব, এবং আক্ষরিক অর্থেই এই সময় দাঁড়িয়ে সৌমিত্র চট্টোপাধ্যায় ছিলেন সত্যি বাংলার শেষ নবাব, যাকে আমরা হারালাম। এই রকম একজন কি বলবো ম্যাজেস্টিক রাজকীয় ব্যক্তিত্বকে কিন্তু আমরা আর খুব শিগগিরই পাবো বলে মনে হয় না। মানে আই হোপ ইউ এগ্রি, কেননা এই যে এতদিকে ছড়িয়ে থাকা একজন মানুষের কর্মকাণ্ড, এটা পাওয়া খুব সহজ নয়।
ট্রু। আমি ওই ছবিটা সবাইকে দেখাবো বলে
প্লিজ প্লিজ
করছি। জাস্ট ওয়ান সেক। এই যে যেই ছবিটার কথা সিজাতো বললো, I don't know whether you can see it properly. This is the photo of that last adda. He had come like this, like একদম majestic, যেটা সিজাতো বললো আর কি। এবার সিজাতো, সরি আমি একটু
আরে না প্লিজ, হ্যাঁ তুমি বললে বলে ভাল লাগলো গো। আমি যেটা বলি, তুমি আছো, সুমন আছো, দেবাঞ্জন আছেন, যেটা সবচেয়ে প্রথমে আমি ধন্যবাদ জানাই যারা এই অনুষ্ঠান করছেন এবং আমাকে এত গুণী মানুষের মধ্যে কথা বলবার সুযোগ করে দিয়েছেন, এবং সেটাও সৌমিত্র চট্টোপাধ্যায়ের মতো একজন মানুষকে নিয়ে। আমি যেটা দেখেছি, আমি তো খুব বেশি দিন ওকে পাইনি, হয়তো শেষ 10-12 বছর, এবং সেটা কিন্তু পেয়েছি খুব আশ্চর্যভাবে লেখালেখিরই সূত্রে। কেননা আমার সঙ্গে আমি যদিও ছবির জগতে কাজ করি, চিত্রনাট্য লেখার কাজ করি, গান লেখার কাজ করি, কিন্তু ওর সঙ্গে আমার আলাপ হয় কৃত্তিবাস পত্রিকার একটা আড্ডায়। সুনীলদা সবসময় চাইতেন যে সৌমিত্র বাবু আসুন, মানে অনুষ্ঠানগুলো অ্যাটেন্ড করতে না পারলেও আড্ডায় যেন সৌমিত্র বাবু হাজির থাকেন। এবং সৌমিত্র বাবু খুবই ভালোবাসতেন আড্ডা দিতে, এখানে তো সুমনও যেটা বললো। এবং আমার খুব আক্ষেপ যে উনি চলে যাবার, হাসপাতালে ভর্তি হওয়ার 7-10 দিন আগে আমাকে এবং শ্রীকান্ত দাকে ফোন করেছিলেন, করে বলেছিলেন শোনো এইসব কোভিড টোভিড বাদ দাও তো, একটু কোথাও গিয়ে বসা যায় না। এবার আমরা তখন ভয় পেয়ে ওকে বললাম যে আমরা বসতেই পারি, কিন্তু আপনার জন্যই আমরা বসতে চাই না, আমরা চাই না আপনার কোনো রকম ক্ষতি হোক। শেষমেশ সেই ক্ষতি হলো, আমাদের আড্ডাটা হলো না। কিন্তু ওই রকম একটা আড্ডায় ওর সঙ্গে আলাপ হয়েছিল, দ্যাট ওয়াজ আ লিটারারি সেশন। এবং তখন সুনীলদা আমাকে আলাপ করিয়ে দিয়েছিলেন, আমি প্রণাম করেছিলাম। আমরা জীবনে ভাবিনি যে সুনীল গঙ্গোপাধ্যায়, সৌমিত্র চট্টোপাধ্যায় এরা সবাই আমাদের কাছে বিরাট তারকা, বিরাট নক্ষত্র। এদের সঙ্গে সামনাসামনি আলাপ হবে, এরা আমাদের নামে চিনবেন, এটা কোনোদিন ভাবিনি। কিন্তু যেটা দেখেছি, যারা আছেন, আমি বলছি সুমনকে বলছি, দেবাঞ্জনকেও বলছি, সেটা হচ্ছে শেষ দিন পর্যন্ত কবিতার জন্য একটা তুমুল খিদে, একটা অসামান্য তাড়না, যেটা নিখুঁত এবং নিখাদ, যার মধ্যে কোনো মিশেল নেই, কোনো রকম যার মধ্যে কোনো মেলানো মেশানো নেই। অনেক সময় লেখা লিখে হয়তো শুটিং এ আছেন, হঠাৎ ফোন করলেন, আমি ফোন পেলে খুব তটস্থ হতাম যে কেন ফোন করছেন আমাকে, শোনো তুমি, তোমার সময় আছে? আমি বললাম হ্যাঁ সময় আছে। আচ্ছা দুটো কবিতা লিখেছি, একটু শোনো তো। উনি স্টুডিও থেকে শুটিং ব্রেকে আমাকে কবিতা শোনাচ্ছেন। এই যে খিদেটা, আফটার বিইং সৌমিত্র চট্টোপাধ্যায় ফর সো মেনি ইয়ার্স, আফটার অ্যাচিভিং সো মেনি থিংস ইন লাইফ, তখন উনি আমার মতো একজন নগণ্য মানুষকে ফোন করে একটা কবিতা শুনিয়ে বলছেন, আচ্ছা কেমন লাগছে তোমার বলো তো, এটা কি বইতে রাখা যায়? এই যে সারল্য এবং একই সঙ্গে এই যে খিদে, নিজেকে তৈরি করার, নিজেকে প্রস্তুত করার, প্রতি মুহূর্তে নিজেকে পরিচিত করার কবিতার মাধ্যমে, এটা কিন্তু আমার কাছে একটা প্রণম্য বিষয়। ওই মানুষটি এতদিকে সাফল্যের শিখরে ওঠার পরেও কবিতাকে এবং সম্পাদনাকে নিজের বুকের কাছে আঁকড়ে রেখেছিলেন, সেটা আমি কখনো ভুলবো না। সুমন এবং দেবাঞ্জন দুজনকেই বলছি।
সুজাত, সত্যি আড্ডাটা স্তব্ধ হয়ে গেছে, অনেক কথোপকথন স্তব্ধ হয়ে গেল ওনার চলে যাওয়াতে। তুমি একটা অসাধারণ ফেসবুক পোস্ট করেছিলে, একটা কবিতা লিখেছিলে সেই মুহূর্তে, সেটা তুমি আমাদের একটু শোনাবে?
হ্যাঁ, আমি চেষ্টা করছি সেটা শোনাতে। আসলে মুশকিল হয় যে এই সময়গুলোয় বোঝা যায় দেবাঞ্জন যে শব্দ কত বিফল, কত ব্যর্থ। কেননা আমাদের যে যন্ত্রণা তার 1% হয়তো শব্দ ব্যক্ত করতে পারে, বাকিটা অব্যক্তই থেকে যায়। তবু আমি চেষ্টা করছি ছোট্ট একটা লেখা যেটার নাম দহন। সন্ধে নামছে তখন তোমার মুখে, আকাশে দূরের তারা চেনাচ্ছ তুমি। আমরা দেখছি আগুনের বন্ধুকে, জীবন ধ্রুবক, মৃত্যুই মরশুমি। এক জীবনের এতগুলো সংলাপ, সব ঠিকঠাক আদায়ের পর ছুটি। আমরা দেখছি শ্রান্ত পায়ের ছাপ, ভালোবাসা তবু দেখায়নি বিচ্যুতি। সন্ধে নামছে আবার তোমার কাছে, এবার তোমাকে নিয়ে যাবে বলে আশা। কজন মানুষ প্রবাহের মতো বাঁচে, চিনিয়ে দিচ্ছ দূরের তারার ভাষা। দাহ মুছে যাক, দহন জাগুক দাগে, মহিরুহ গেলে নতজানু হয় ঝড়ও। ছাই উড়ে যেতে এক মুহূর্ত লাগে, তোমার আগুন আকাশের চেয়ে বড়। That was it.
অনেক ধন্যবাদ সুজাত, এটা একটা অসাধারণ কবিতা, এবং ইন সাম ওয়েজ ইট sort of echoed the metaphor of the tree, গাছ, যেটা নামান এই সেকশনটা শুরু
হ্যাঁ
করে।
হ্যাঁ হ্যাঁ হ্যাঁ
তো ইন সাম ওয়েজ ইটস ভেরি ভেরি মুভিং, মানে এটা শুনে খুব শুনে আপ্লুত হয়ে যাচ্ছি আমি। সুমন দাকে I would request him to take this conversation forward. Suman Da from Batspa University.
থ্যাংক ইউ দেবাঞ্জন, এবং অনেক ধন্যবাদ সুজাত। আপনি যখন আমাদের এই কবিতাটির মাধ্যমে যে কথাগুলো বললেন, ইনি তো গাছ নন, ইনি গাছ, ইনি বৃক্ষ, ইনি মহিরুহ, ইনি মানে এই ভিন্নভাবে যে আমরা দেখি সৌমিত্র চট্টোপাধ্যায়কে, সেটা সত্যি একটা নতুন করে চেনার মতন। অনেক ধন্যবাদ।
ধন্যবাদ।
আমাদের যে চেনার প্রক্রিয়া, সেটার পরবর্তী সংযোজক হচ্ছেন ঋদ্ধি সেন। Our next speaker, Riddhi Sen, is a national award-winning film and theatre actor. He has known and worked with Soumitra Chatterjee for a very long time, and he has collaborated with him, very notably in a film called Shamantaral, for instance, where he worked with Parambrata Chatterjee as well. Riddhi wanted to be present here, but he is filming, which is why he has sent us this message. Thank you, Riddhi.
A very good evening to everyone. I'm thankful to Bengal Heritage Foundation for giving me a space to speak in this seminar. I'm extremely privileged to be amid such an august company, and I'm really eager to also listen to what everyone is saying. And we are all here to talk about this person whose demise has left us broken, and it's a very personal loss for all of us. I did not know exactly what to say, how to begin with, because sometimes grief really leaves you speechless. It renders you speechless. So, and it's very difficult for me to talk about someone with whom we all, not just Bengalis, all across the world, people shared a very personal relationship, which was beyond just seeing this man on the silver screen. But on the day of his demise, I had written an article which I wanted to share with all of you. I wanted to read it out because today, more than ever, we need to understand why we need to think about Soumitra Chatterjee beyond the label of a legend, and why we need to understand this man's philosophy, and especially for the youth, they need to understand, we need to understand the philosophy which guided this man. So I'm going to start reading this brief article where I try to encapsulate few of my feelings towards him. The importance of silence at times is extremely necessary. It is heavy and the sound of it becomes unbearable, yet one cannot help but reside in it. Word seems too shallow to express the void attached to the beginning of Soumitra Chatterjee's journey to an alternate world. Amidst a newfound fashion of writing a short form of rest in peace, RIP, and expressing grief with colorful mourning emoticons and garishly read broken heart symbols. Expressing grief has become a social responsibility for one group, a duty where one feels a responsibility that mourning should be visible. And the second category of people who need to row the boat in the opposite direction of the current. On the very day of a demise, few people need to hold the deceased accountable for his or her imperfections and flaws, and throws arrows of questions on the social media court, forgetting the idea of genuine grief and the notion of when to criticize. Both parties often aim becomes a situation of trying to gain importance on social media by using a death. Thus, it's immensely difficult for me to encapsulate my feelings in words for someone whose identity to me was that of my grandfather's. My grandfather Shamol Sen, who was a giant in the world of theatre, who had a huge contribution in the Renaissance of Bengali theatre, passed away much before I was born. He left too early without achieving half of what he deserved. His untimely demise still bothers me. I have only heard his stories from my parents and my grandmom. One of the closest persons I've had in my growing up years was also my maternal grandfather, Dijen Bandyopadhyay. Until his demise in 2017 left me shaken, leaving me with the understanding of the most relative concept in the world, which is time. The only grandfather I had till 2020, 15th November, was Soumitra Dadu. I was born in a family of actors. So I was extremely privileged that I was exposed to the world of theatre and cinema from a very tender age. I've been immensely privileged to see and interact and learn from masters like Mrinal Sen, Joy Goswami, Shankha Ghosh, Rudra Prasad Sengupta, and so many giants from the world of literature, theatre, cinema and music. From people who never bowed down to the increasing wave of mediocrity. Soumitra Dadu became the first president of our 28-year-old theatre group Swapno Sandhani, under which one of the most celebrated and timeless theatre productions of Bengal, Tik Tiki, got staged. I'm sure many of you have seen it also. Tik Tiki was an adaptation of Anthony Schaeffer's play Sleuth. It was adapted and directed by Soumitra Dadu with a cast consisting of him and my father. The play was performed more than 100 times and it literally created history. After that, till 2019, my father and he worked together in several plays, films, recitations, leaving me with an opportunity to watch this human being and artist very closely. His body of work is so dense that it'll take me a lifetime to know him properly. But whatever little I observed couldn't help but make me fall in love with him unabashedly. There are many people, much more able people than me who can talk about the sheer genius and incomparable versatility of this man. But for the youth of 2020, I would like to focus on a completely different aspect of him. We are all aware of his gargantuan acting prowess, his extraordinary sense of rhythm, his enormous body of work as a poet, his unforgettable recitations, his unstoppable strokes of paintbrushes and his voice of protest. But above all these, we need to recognize the philosophy which drove this man. A philosophy which is losing its relevance every day in a world full of jellyfish and compromises. We need to understand why he was the last of whom we refer as the greats. The fearless individual who used fear as his weapon, not as his weakness. In order to be the complete artist, what we need is to learn his philosophy towards life. A life driven by values, unfaltering simplicity, and childlike inquisition towards life itself, which is absolutely lost in a world full of gimmicks. Often we refer to someone as a living legend. We forget to look beyond this particular term. Our mind sight gets limited within the self-responsibility and heaviness of the word legend. We become unable to trace back and study the philosophy behind the path he has walked. This is something which Soumitra Dadu always disliked. He never wanted anyone to stop themselves from questioning him because of the shield of this word called legend. He never rested. He found his rest in poetry, in acting, in expression. He embraced the paradox of hiding and expressing himself at the same time in his performances and writing. He never believed in the dumb concept of differentiating our personal and professional life. His personal experiences reflected in his work and his professional experiences became a guiding light in his path of privacy. He had the power to accept criticism with dignity, and he criticized with knowledge and education, especially in times when criticism has lowered down to abuse and personal vengeance. He proved the word facade wrong without exception every single time. Soumitra Dadu enjoyed bharet cha jetake amra boli from a roadside tea stall with warm shingaras, but he didn't do all these things for a Facebook post. He never sold his simplicity, something which we have learned to do from a very, very tender age. Increasingly, we are becoming stranger to the concept of voicing a political opinion without being a party to a particular color. He will always remain an example of how an individual can be active in politics without taking sides. His life reflected his belief in Marxism, which was never narrowed down and constricted within a political party. The meaning of politics for him was beyond the notions of any party. It was a responsibility and sensibility which every artist needs to have. In the span of 84 years of his life, we only notice the shining gems, but we forget to recognize his insane ability to not give in to pain. At a time when we give up easily, when we get depressed because we didn't get enough likes on an Instagram or Facebook photo, he never stopped working even in the worst of times. He didn't accept defeat and stood strong beside his grandson, Ranodip Bose, after he met with a terrible accident, a fatal accident. He kept the windows of his mind open, learning, writing, adapting and recreating, being oblivious to a frequently met word called frustration, which we use very often in our day-to-day lives. In totality, he became a face, an individual, which every generation connected to. Thus, we are mourning the loss of not only an ocean of talent, but a person whose philosophy needs to be a guiding light for a world suffering and surrendering to mediocrity. Where actors learn to make a diet chart on an Instagram account before they even learn to act, where everybody dissects a poetry on Facebook, where many producers and filmmakers are interested in turning cinema and actors into products, where the word dignity in politics is lost and the freedom of speech is slaughtered, where we are always looking for a shortcut. In such a world, we can't constrict Soumitra Chatterjee with the word legend. We need to go through this word. We need to look beyond this word so that the youth, like our generation, gets to learn from one of the youngest 84-year-old who ever refused to age. Almost the entire city, I remember, came to Robindra Sadan that day as we all walked to Keuratala Mahashashan and in a walk arranged by the CM. As we walked with candles and posters in hand, I noticed so many elderly people standing on the balconies of my old city like distant stars who were burning and are ready to fade out, who were fading out. They were staring with tears and disbelief, and they were looking at their hero for the last time through their soaked eyes. I heard so many people of my generation howl in tears for this 84-year-old dreamer. I saw all the political parties coming together and walking in unison, keeping their differences aside. I saw Poulomi Bose, one of the strongest fighters I've ever seen in my life, the daughter who fought beside her best friend, her father, till his last breath, and all of it reminded me of a poem which reflected the life of this man called Soumitra Chatterjee. As a first smell of winter and flowers paved the way for my hero's farewell, it reminded me of Robert Frost's poem. The woods are lovely, dark and deep, but I've promises to keep, and miles to go before I sleep, and miles to go before I sleep. Thank you.
We thank Riddhi for his beautiful message. I will now hand over to Debanjan, who will take us through the next stage of our program.
Thank you so much, Riddhi. Thank you so much, Shumanda. May I now invite my colleague, Jonathan Kennedy, who is Director of Arts, British Council in India, to share his reflections on the program. Over to you, Jonathan.
Thanks, Debanjan. Wow, that is a tall order given the past couple of hours of insights from people who actually worked with the great man. It's a summary of this is going to be quite a challenge, but I'll do my best. I hope I don't offer fool's gold from what is following real gold. Firstly, just to thank the Bengal Heritage Foundation, the India in the UK High Commission of India, the Tata Steel Kolkata Literary Meet, the Nehru Centre of London, and all of the stellar lineup for their speakers today. A wonderful tribute to a fabulous man. It's also very clear that he was more than the sum of his parts, a modern Renaissance man, actor, painter, writer, poet, stunningly handsome, with the intensity of his luminous eyes, modest, mercurial, and the colossus of Indian cinema, a true man of arts, theatre, and cinema, and an iconic creative innovator and advocate of Kolkata. The Bengal Heritage Foundation recently renewed our collaboration with the British Council, I should say with the British Council, and this is now enshrined in a memorandum of understanding. British Council's work in film with the BFI and BAFTA in the UK, brings films to the world, and in particular with our film festivals and cinemas in India, we collaborate over the longer term. This week, in fact, BAFTA announced a 4-year program to enable young filmmakers in India and with the UK to enable the next generation of Indian actors, directors, in the light of Soumitra Chatterjee and Ray. Hopefully we'll have a new generation discovered after this next 4 years. Sharmila Tagore spoke of how generous and spellbinding he was as a raconteur off-screen, a total professional on-screen, an actor's actor, and a director's actor, a star with a total work ethic, and to the end, a fearless adventurer who explored and experimented his craft as an actor. It's a fabulous letter that we've been party to. Andrew Robinson, thank you very much. I know you're hoping to be here today, but you can't. So Andrew Robinson shared this letter with us a few days back. Andrew, you may know, is a journalist and author and worked with Soumitra when he was preparing a tribute to Satyajit Ray's 70th birthday in 1991. And I'm going to read the letter because it gives insight into the actor and the man that we've been paying tribute to this evening. In 1958, before acting in The World of Agu, my first screen role, I was inspired to write a lengthy biography of the protagonist in which I tried to imagine a number of incidents beyond the main scenarios. Satyajit Ray, already the maker of Panchali and The Music Room, listened intently. One of the many reasons for respecting him, it was his calm curiosity, which he would, when he would listen to the ideas of all of his actors. He is not always mild-mannered though. In 1959, during the shooting of The Goddess, the location was on the bank of a river, several miles away from the unit where we were lodged. After setting up the camera, Ray discovered I had forgotten my dialogue sheet. He could easily have reminded me of my lines, but he did not do so. Instead, he compelled me to bring my dialogue from the camp. This single incident taught me a lifetime the necessity of discipline in cinema. Before shooting a film, Ray reads the script aloud to all of his actors. It always seems as if there's no space for the actors because he's done it already. But where does the actor find something to contribute? I think the most important contribution an actor can make to a Ray film is to provide the character he is playing with an emotional authenticity. This grows out of Ray's scripts. They are such a true depiction of our people's lives that they make us evoke spontaneous emotional reaction in the actor's mind. This is the cardinal reason for my satisfaction in performing in Ray's films. Not that he is the most celebrated director in India, but that he is the truest chronicler of the human reality around us. Soumitra Chatterjee, Kolkata. And in light of those astonishing and eloquent words, I think we should now all go back and explore his back catalogue and work to come on IMDb and bathe in his light. Debanjan, back to you.
Thank you, Jonathan, very much for those really wonderful words. Back to Suranjan, back in the studio to Suranjan.
Yeah, no, thank you, Debanjan, and thank you, Shumon, once again. I have Saurav with me as well. And I think before we head over to Rohit Wadhwana, who's the first secretary of the High Commission of India in London, we would really like to thank you, Debanjan and Shumon, for that great session we've had, the great panel discussion that you have orchestrated for the last two and a half hours. I think it was absolutely wonderful. We will, of course, have a formal vote of thanks in a moment. But before that, we move over to Rohit Wadhwana. Rohit, if you can please turn your video on.
Is it, I think it's on. Can you see me and hear me now?
We can hear you. Your video is still off.
Okay, just a minute. Can you see me now?
We can see you now. So presenting to you, ladies and gentlemen, the first secretary from the High Commission of India, Mr. Rohit Wadhwana.
Thank you very much, Mr. Suranjan Das, Suranjan Somji. It was such a wonderful program, and it's a mixed feeling for me today. One of sadness of losing such a legendary actor, poet, writer, director, and whatnot, such a wonderful human being. And at the same time, coming out with such an excellent program with very good message from High Commissioner and the list of panelists, kind of Sarmila Tagore and whatnot. So first of all, I must congratulate the Bengal Heritage Foundation, Nehru Center, High Commission of India and British Council for coming together with very good program on cultural front. And let me tell you, this is something which I look forward to having more and more in our future. May I rather request you all, British Council, Bengal Heritage Foundation, Nehru Center, can we do more such events? This is such a fruitful event. I was so much mesmerized in the sense, see, we not only paid tribute to such a legend person by doing this one event, but we got connected to so many people worldwide. We brought out the cultural front of India, the eastern part of India, and India has so much to offer. And I think if we can bring out more such events, more such legends, why to only pay tributes to the legends? There are many living beings who are par excellence. Let's come out with them one after another, maybe monthly in the series. You are doing this think tank events, Bengal think tank. Let's go ahead with them. Let's bring out one legend at a time. Let's introduce them to beyond India, beyond Bengal, beyond even UK. And because these platforms provide us, worldwide reach, we must explore much more wider range to reach to. So with that, I'm kind of word struck. I don't know, how to praise the event and how to praise the lineup of panelists and excellent speakers that you have organized. Very much impressed. Thank you very much for doing this event, and thank you very much for making it such an excellent program. Thank you very much, Mr. Saurav Niyogi, President, Bengal Heritage Foundation, and the officers of British Council, Nehru Center and High Commission of India, and all the attendees who are listening to us, who are watching us live, and who will watch us in future from Facebook page of High Commission of India, as well as the Bengal Heritage Foundation. Whenever you watch it, you will be enriched with a lot of knowledge, with a lot of positive vibes. And that's what we always endeavor to spread across. Thank you very much. And please tie up and let's plan and announce something new in future. I am looking forward to you for making a quick announcement, something that comes to your mind, and we will start working on that. Thank you. Back to you.
Thank you very much, Rohit ji.
Thank you.
Thank you. And just a quick note for everyone who is waiting on Zoom, who are kind of waiting in the background in Zoom. Obviously, we'll hand the mic over first to Saurav, the president of Bengal Heritage Foundation, and then Soumitra for a vote of thanks. But after that, I would request everyone else who's on Zoom to come back with their videos on. Maybe we can have a nice photo opportunity with everyone together, because we're really thankful for everyone who's hung around with us for these last 3 hours or so through this program, and the program itself has been really enthralling. So, Saurav, any parting words from yourself?
I'm at a loss of words at this point of time, to be honest. After hearing from all of these wonderful panelists. We started off with Kaushik Sen. We then moved on with the journey with sort of Porombrotho and Shormila Madam. And then we started sort of exploring various facets of Ray through their wonderful reflections and recollections as we went to sort of Rituparna Sengupta, as we went to Shumon Ghosh from US, as we heard from sort of Srijato, we heard from Riddhi, and all of them brought out so many different facets. And we heard the internalization of Naman from Naman. We heard a wonderful Bengali discussion and Kobita from Srijato. And it was amazing. And it has been so aptly summed up by Jonathan and Rohit. I can just be thankful to everyone for bringing this event together in such a short period of time. We literally pulled this together in less than a week, and it's just amazing. And people like, when I think of this, people actually bringing the perspectives, I would say to people like Shumon Ghosh from the US, keep making such wonderful movies because, in a way, Shumon, you represent the diaspora in such a wonderful way because sort of you live in Miami and you make films still in Bengal. It's such a wonderful reflection to feel as a Bengali. So I think I'll hand over to Sammy to do the sort of official vote of thanks, but sort of to all our partners here, the High Commission of India, Nehru Center, British Council, and the Tata Steel Kolkata Literary Meet. A big thank you for a wonderful collaboration here. I missed out, give me 1 second, I missed out on our two wonderful moderators. It's just, I'm so overwhelmed at this point of time, to be honest, because Shumon Ghosh from Bath and Devanjan means they're very personal friends, but sort of, I think the way you conducted the session left me mesmerized. I think there's not only wonderful sort of anecdotes from the panelists, but from all of you. And I just want to thank some of the people behind the scenes from a BHF perspective. Shuranjan, sort of kudos from pulling this off from a technology and coordination perspective. Kaushik Chatterjee, Bidisha, Amit, Sammy. I'm probably missing a few names here for coordinating this through. I think thank you so much, guys. This has been wonderful. But without much ado, I'll just hand it over to Sammy to do the final vote of thanks.
Thank you, Saurabh. And just like Rohit has said, I think I'll use the same word from Rohit. I'm vote struck actually. And so many thank yous, but I'll still do the honors. But I think if I could just express it, it's more than just a thank you. I mean, the whole list of panelists, the number of messages that we have got, and the beautiful thoughts. So with so many beautiful thoughts and the nostalgic memories shared by our elite panel about the iconic Soumitra Chatterjee, today's beautiful event, Soumitra Chatterjee, Reminiscing Together, a tribute to the legend comes to an end. I'm Soumitra. I lead the media and communications for Bengal Heritage Foundation, and I take this privilege to propose the vote of thanks on behalf of Bengal Heritage Foundation to everyone who made today's session memorable for many years to come. We can discuss about this. So our esteemed speakers and panelists, our Excellency Srimati Gayatri Sarkumar, High Commissioner of India, London, Ms. Barbara Wickham, Director, British Council, India, and Minister of Cultural and Educational Affairs, British High Commission, Amish Tripathi, Director, Nehru Center, London, and renowned author, Rohit Vadvana, First Secretary, Indian High Commission, London, Sharmila Tagore, multiple national award-winning actor, Kaushik Sen, actor, director, Rituparna Sengupta, national award-winning actor, Porombrotho Chatterjee, actor, director, producer, Shumon Ghosh, economist and national award-winning actor, director, Riddhi Sen, national award-winning actor, Srijato Bandyopadhyay, poet and lyricist, Jonathan Kennedy, director, Arts, India at British Council, India, Naman Ramachandran, film critic, Sight and Sound, international correspondent for Variety, Malavika Banerjee, director, Kolkata Literary Meet, Kaushik Chatterjee, independent actor and BHF panel representative. And our very beloved moderators who made it so interesting for the last 2.5 hours, Debanjan Chakraborty, Director, British Council, Kolkata; Shuman Ghosh, Professor of Film Studies, Bath Spa University, UK. Our thanks to our partners, High Commission of India, London; Nehru Centre, London; British Council, India; Tata Steel, Kolkata Literary Meet. Last but never the least, sincere thanks to the entire team BHF for their effort in making today's event a grand success. With Soumitra Chatterjee etched in our hearts forever, I would like to quote 2 lines from Rabindranath Thakur's Sheshir Kobita as we close today's session. মোর লাগে করিও না শোক, আমার রয়েছে কর্ম, রয়েছে বিশ্বলোক। হে বন্ধু, বিদায়। নমস্কার, thank you.
Namaskar, and on behalf of Bengal Heritage Foundation, we hope to see you again in our Think Tank series. For everyone who's on the Zoom call, who have videos hidden now, you can please make it all visible and come on screen, especially Naman, Casey, Amit, Vidisha. I think we'll all have a kind of 1 minute of glory and a photo opportunity based on that. And from everyone, a very good evening or a very good afternoon or very good morning, depending on which part of the world you're in, or a very good night indeed, especially if you're in India or Singapore. Thank you, and we hope to see you soon. Namaskar.
ছবি তোলা হয়ে গেছে?